Good morning to my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. I'm down here at Barangaroo. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just preparing myself to go to work. But before then, what I'd love to do is just continue my morning tradition of going through and delivering a vlog on a book summary. And today's book summary is an interesting one indeed, and it's called The Courage to Be Happy by an author named Ichiro Kishimi. So this book here is one, I guess, for parents who want to help their children grow and develop and become self-reliant individuals rather than people who are dependent and reliant on their parents for every move they make. So the author kicks off the book with a bit of a philosophical positioning where they say that the past you speak of is nothing more than a story skillfully compiled by you now. Please understand this point. So what it's saying here is that when we talk about our past, it's basically us telling a story, and it's our story. It's our interpretation of the past, and it may be real, it may be not real. But basically what we're saying here is that it's a storytelling that we're doing. And with all storytelling and with all fact gathering, there is a slant, there is a narrative, there is a perspective that is being reflected and expressed, which can influence our worldview, can influence the way we see things. So it's important to understand that everything that we do in life, everything that we recall, everything that we talk about is basically a story that we're telling. So we have the power, each person basically has the power to colour, to shade, to express their story in a way which can improve their worldview and make their life a lot better than what it may potentially be. So just think about the importance of storytelling and just ask yourself, am I telling a story which is empowering? Am I telling a story which is going to help me? Am I telling the story which actually reflects what I've been through? Is it empowering? Is the storytelling serving me? Or is it painting me into a corner? Is it making my life much worse than what it is? Is it making my relationships worse than what they are? Is it going to lead me to where I want to go? Or is it going to, pop me into a corner and trap me for the rest of my life? So the author then goes on to say that from their perspective, and they're psychologists, so they get to speak to lots of people, they get to read lots of books, go to lots of seminars, and their life mission is basically to try and help understand people and help people understand themselves and sort through their particular issues. But the author here says that there is no single cure for unhappiness and lack of personal success or fulfillment. But what is more important, according to the author, is to prevent these situations from happening and occurring in the first place. So prevention is far more important than cure from a psychological perspective. Then the author makes a very, very profound point, something that I guess we don't think about all the time, but something that is pretty simple and yet pretty powerful at the same time. They say that to raise happy adults, you basically need to be raising happy children, as most of the issues, according to this author, according to science, according to psychology, most people's problems come from their childhood, and the traumas that people have experienced throughout their lives as children come back time and time again to haunt them. And it's these childhood traumas that have the mental repercussions that keep on coming back as replayed stories over and over again, and can stay with somebody for their entire life and impact their worldview and impact the way they interact with other people for many, many years into their future. And not only that, but the traumas of childhood can also influence the framework of reference that people have in terms of how they make decisions, how they relate to other people, how they see themselves, their self-image, and it basically influences our reality, the slithers of reality that we all have in our lives. We've talked about this time and time again, but at the end of the day, we can only live one life at a time, our own life, and we all live a different life. We've all most definitely lived a different past. We're all going to live a different present. I am here, you are there. Even if you are here with me, you're going to have a different perspective. I'm looking this way, you could be looking this way. So we're all going to be seeing different things at exactly the same time, because we are experiencing a different present, and we are all going to experience and live a different future. We're all going to have an entirely different life, and along the way we're going to have experiences, life experiences, which are both positive and negative, that are going to shape the way we see the world and the way we interpret the world around us, our worldview. So these frameworks of reference, these potential traumas as a child, as we say, could influence the way we interpret ourselves, our relationships, and they help build the stories that we keep on replaying over and over and again to ourselves throughout our lives. So it's important, I guess, to raise happy children, because it's these happy children that become happy adults. But it's not only just being a happy child. The author here is saying that what we need to be raising is independent and reliable children who can depend on themselves, can make decisions on themselves, feel loved, feel respected, feel needed, feel that they belong, so that they can grow up in a healthy environment that will facilitate their growth and development. So the author here is very, very big on being against helicopter parenting. Because what they say here is that a helicopter parent, a parent that is always hovering over their child, making decisions for them, leading them in every step of the way, is actually damaging that child's emotional growth and development. Helicopter parenting, from this author's perspective, is quite dangerous, and what causes a lot of issues in children and family, because what it does is that it makes them dependent, just like a drug addiction. They can't make decisions, they can't move forward and through life without their parents' consent, or without their parents' approval, or their parents stroking along the way. Because we need to understand that our job as parents is to raise a reliable, independent adult. And that helicopter parenting, according to this author, according to a lot of the research that they've done and a lot of the cases that they've been involved with, actually causes more harm than good. Because the author here makes a great point where they say that humans naturally are inclined to choose self-reliance. I just see my grandchildren. They want to do things on their own. They don't want you to be meddling in what they're doing. By all means, they love having an audience, but they don't want to be told what to do all the time. They want to be gently encouraged, but they want to be left alone as well. So it's understandable that we as humans are wired to overcome obstacles, to evolve, to grow and find new ways of dealing with our issues and our problems. At the end of the day, humans are teleological in nature, which means that, you know, once we pose a problem, once we have a challenge, once we have an issue, we absolutely love to solve those problems. As humans, we just love solving problems. And the more problems we solve in our lives, the more successful we can become. Because by and through solving problems, we build experience, we build knowledge, we build know-how. We create many, many patterns in our minds, in our heads, that we can use as a reference point to solving other problems. So given that humans are teleological in nature, we love finding new ways of dealing with issues and problems, and we love the opportunity to become self-reliant, because this self-reliance, this autonomy that we can achieve, leads us in some ways to fulfillment and happiness. But the author makes a very important and valid point where they say that the key to fulfillment and happiness is solving problems and dealing with problems, but we need to differentiate our own issues with other people's issues. We love solving problems which are of our own making, or that create an opportunity for us as well. What we must do, though, according to this author, is we must avoid at all costs getting sucked into other people's issues, getting sucked into the vortex of other people's problems, because there's only a limit in terms of how many problems one can deal with and one can solve. And what you don't want to do, according to this author, is to take on more problems than you're capable of solving. Complete your problems, solve your problems, but don't get lumbered, don't get overburdened with other people's problems. The second formal point to come from this book is where the author talks about something which is really interesting, a different sort of perspective to mull over and to consider. And they say that we should avoid, where possible, to overpraise a child for every good deed they do, because what it does is it can affect their emotional growth. Because what happens is, according to this author and according to the psychology of the time, if you overstroke, if you overcompensate by constantly stroking a child and telling it how good they are, or telling them how wonderful they are all the time, what happens is that they become attached to that need for stroking at all times, and they can become a junkie for stroking, a junkie for attention, a junkie for positive reinforcement all the time. So what the author here is saying is that doing the right thing does not require praise, as there is reward in itself that can be achieved and can be received by a child or by a person through doing something on their own and indulging in the beauty of that self-reliance, the beautiful taste of getting something done, the reward of achievement, which doesn't need to be reinforced, doesn't need to be celebrated. It just needs to be felt, it just needs to be appreciated, and it just needs to be taken by that person who does whatever they do. Because the author also goes on to say that some children and some people actually feel embarrassed when praised, and they end up stop trying for fear of being singled out again and praised and embarrassed in public. Other children at the other end of the spectrum can develop superiority complexes where they think that they are much better than the other children. And what this does is it creates another sort of problem with the development of a child's emotion and a child's ability to fit in. The author here says something really powerful and really profound, where they talk about encouraging competition but not encouraging rivalry. So a lot of children have sibling rivalry. I've seen it through my friends, I've seen it through other people, and it ends up eating them away, and it ends up becoming a never-ending source of pain and suffering, where they try and outdo each other just for the sake of one-upmanship, without looking to try and co-benefit and to bring a reward to both of them. So once again, competition is good because competition brings out the best in us. But when that competition gets to the point where it becomes rivalry, what the author here is saying is that's where it becomes unhealthy. So we should encourage competition, but not encourage rivalry. And the author then also goes on to say that what we should be looking at doing is looking at the other end of the spectrum and turning, where possible, a blind eye to errors, a blind eye to mistakes. Because we all know that we've done something wrong. What we don't want is for somebody to remind us and to embarrass us and to keep on bringing it up. Just let it go, let it slide, and there is a lesson there in itself. And if we keep on harping on it, if we keep on returning to it, it can be damaging to a child's growth and emotional development. Because, we all make mistakes. And what the author here is saying is, as a parent, as a guide, as a peer, what can be helpful is to explain to a person what the potential consequences of their actions could be. But to also encourage and foster an environment of experimenting and exploring. Because the only way we can grow, the only way a person can grow is through experimenting and exploring and leaning just outside their comfort zone. We're going to make mistakes, but those mistakes, those errors, are stepping stones to future successes. So we shouldn't try and squash that. We shouldn't try and eliminate that. But we need a balanced view and an opportunity to enable our children, our grandchildren, our friends and family to explore, to be curious, to lean just outside their comfort zone, and to make mistakes, knowing very well that those mistakes are a necessary path. Those mistakes are a currency that needs to be used in order to grow and develop. The last point that the author makes is where they talk about the importance of allowing children to grow in a warm, empathetic environment where they feel equal and they feel that they belong. We mustn't make anybody feel inferior or dependent, because what that does is it ruins their future. It ruins their motivation to do more and to be more. And it makes them, as we said before, a junkie who will attach themselves to a group, to a gang, to somebody else who they feel comfortable with, rather than their family environment where they feel second rate. So we need to create an environment of harmony where people feel, as we said, welcomed, people feel loved, people don't feel judged, so that they can grow and develop and to become better versions of themselves. And most importantly of all, as parents, we need to treat children differently. We need to treat them as individuals, because the bottom line is that we are all different from each other. There's no doubt about it. We are different from each other, and we were created different from each other for a reason. Because we're different from each other for each other. Those differences that we have are there so that we can complement and supplement each other's strengths and weaknesses, so that we all become better through working together for the common good, as opposed to the selfish advancement of each person. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5am Club. I look forward to coming to you again from a different place, from a different location, so that we can live, learn and pass it on, and to drink from the well of knowledge of OPE, other people's experiences, because we need other people's experiences. Because as we said before, each and every one of us in our lifetime can only experience so much. We can only take in so many very, very small slithers of reality. But when we add other people's experiences, when we add other people's OPE to our own experiences, that allows us to have a wider and a deeper and a broader perspective in life which will help us grow and develop and become better versions of ourselves, as we said before, because we can use those patterns that have been adopted, that have been inherited from other people, of course the ones that serve us, and then use that for us to leverage and to grow and to build a base from, so that we can create opportunities for others as well. Anyway, take care, looking forward to chatting again, and bye for now from this wonderful location in the city, Barangaroo. Yasas, and bye for now.